I didn't believe in internet mysteries. At least, not until the email arrived. It came in at 11:43 p.m. on a Tuesday night. No subject line, just a single sentence in the body. Do you remember Marrow Creek? At first, I assumed it was spam or a prank. But something about the name made my stomach tighten. Marrow Creek. I hadn't heard that name in years. In fact, I wasn't even sure where I'd heard it from. I replied with 2 words. Who is this? The response came instantly. No typing bubble, no delay. You live there. I stared at the screen, waiting for logic to kick in. I'd lived in 3 places my entire life. None of them were called Marrow Creek. Still, the name wouldn't let go. So I did what anyone would do. I opened Google. Nothing. No town. No history. No photos. Not even a mention. I tried different searches. Marrow Creek, USA. Marrow Creek missing town. Marrow Creek residents. Still nothing. That's when my phone buzzed again. Another email. They erased it. My heart started beating faster now. I asked the obvious question. Erased what? This time the reply took longer, almost a full minute. The town, the people, the memories. I laughed. I actually laughed. Because that's what you do when something feels too unreal to be scary. But then the email continued. You were 17 when you left. You don't remember the fire. You don't remember the list. You don't remember what they made us forget. My laughter stopped. Because 17 was the exact age I moved away from my childhood home. A detail I had never shared online. I scrolled through the sender's address. No name, just a string of letters and numbers. I typed slowly. If this is a joke, stop. The reply came back immediately. Look at your left wrist. I froze. I didn't want to look. I don't know why, but some instinct told me not to. Still, I did. Faded, almost invisible. A thin white scar running across my wrist. I had never known where it came from. My phone vibrated again. Everyone from Marrow Creek has one. That's when I realized something far worse than fear. I wasn't being contacted at random. I was being reminded. And somewhere, somehow, a town that officially never existed was starting to remember me back. I didn't sleep that night. Every time I closed my eyes, the name came back. Marrow Creek. By morning, the emails were gone. Not in spam, not in trash. Gone completely. I checked my sent folder. My replies were still there, but the sender field was blank, as if I'd been emailing myself. I took a sick day from work and drove straight to the public library. If Marrow Creek had ever existed, it would be there. Property records, old maps, census data, something. The librarian didn't even look surprised when I asked. She just frowned and said, "We don't have anything under that name." I asked her to check older microfilm records. She hesitated, then led me to the back room. Dusty drawers, yellowed maps, county layouts from the 1950s, the 60s, the 70s. That's when I saw it, a hand-drawn map from 1989. Between 2 highways was a small dot. No label, just empty space. I pointed at it. What was here? The librarian's face went pale. She shook her head. There's never been anything there. But her hands were shaking. I took a photo of the map with my phone. The moment I did, the screen glitched. The dot vanished. The map now showed nothing but forest. I checked the photo again. Same thing. No dot. That's when my phone vibrated. A text this time. Unknown. They're watching your searches now. I didn't respond. Instead, I went home and pulled out my old storage box, the one my parents had given me years ago. Inside were childhood photos, school papers, a yearbook. I flipped through it casually. Then I noticed the missing pages. An entire section had been torn out, between sophomore and senior year. I checked the index. The names jumped from Morrow to Mason. Marrow Creek would have been right there. I turned to the dedication page. Something had been scratched out. I held it under the light. There were names carved so deep they'd nearly cut through the paper. Dozens of them, all crossed out. My phone buzzed again. Unknown. They started with records, then photos, then people. I finally typed back. Who are you? The reply came slower this time. Someone who didn't forget. Another message followed. Google Maps won't show it, but the road is still there. My stomach dropped because I suddenly remembered something. A road my parents never let me drive down. A place where GPS always lost signal. A stretch of forest I'd avoided my entire life, without knowing why. My phone buzzed one last time. If you go looking for Marrow Creek, make sure someone knows where you're going. I stared at the message, then at my car keys, and for the first time since the email arrived, I understood why some places are erased. I waited 2 days before going anywhere near that road. I told myself I needed time to think, to calm down. But the truth was simpler. I was scared of what might still be there. Instead, I followed the only lead I had left. The witness. The next email came from a different address, but I knew it was the same person. It contained only an address and a time. No explanation. The location was a diner off the interstate. One of those places that never seems to close, no matter how empty it gets. I arrived 10 minutes early. The parking lot was nearly empty. Inside, the air smelled like burnt coffee and old grease. He was already there, sitting alone in the corner booth. At first glance, he looked normal. Mid-40s, gray jacket, baseball cap pulled low. But something was wrong. People passed by his table without looking at him, not once, not even accidentally. I sat across from him. Up close, I noticed his eyes. They kept drifting, not to me, but past me, as if he was afraid to focus too long. You shouldn't have come, he said quietly. His voice sounded tired. Not old, just worn down. You emailed me, I replied. He nodded. Because you're starting to remember. I asked him his name. He hesitated, then said, I don't use it anymore. I rolled up my sleeve and showed him the scar on my wrist. His breath caught. He pulled his sleeve back. Same scar, same place. That's how they marked us, he said. Not physically, mentally. I asked him how many people were from Marrow Creek. He stared at the table. Depends on when you ask. He explained that Marrow Creek wasn't erased all at once. First, official records disappeared. Then online mentions. Then photographs. But people were harder. So they changed us instead, he said. Changed how? They made it so no one notices us. Not really. We fade out of conversations, out of memories. A waitress walked over. She asked me what I wanted. Then she looked directly through him. Didn't even acknowledge he was there. When she left, my hands were shaking. Why you? I asked. Why do you still remember? He smiled, sadly. Because I was supposed to die there. My phone vibrated. A notification popped up. Photo memory. 15 years ago, I opened it. A group photo. Teenagers standing in front of a school sign. The sign was blurred. Every face was clear, except one. A tall boy near the edge of the frame. His face wouldn't load, just a smear of static. The man across from me leaned forward. That's me, he said. I looked up at him. For the first time, his eyes met mine. They didn't erase Marrow Creek because something bad happened there, he said. They erased it because something followed us out. The diner lights flickered. Every sound around us faded, and I realized something horrifying. This man wasn't hiding from the world. The world had been trained not to see him. I didn't tell anyone where I was going, not my family, not my friends. not even the man from the diner, because deep down, I knew the warning wasn't about safety. It was about memory. The road appeared just after mile marker 62. No sign, no exit number, just a narrow strip of cracked asphalt breaking away from the highway like a mistake no one bothered to fix. My GPS went silent the moment I turned onto it. No recalculating, no signal lost message, just nothing. The trees closed in fast. Pines packed so tightly together they blocked the sky. The air grew colder, heavier. After 10 minutes, I noticed something wrong. The road wasn't curving, but I kept passing the same dead oak tree, split down the middle by lightning, over and over. My phone buzzed. Unknown. Don't stop the car. I gripped the steering wheel harder. That's when I saw the first sign. Not a road sign, a warning carved into the bark of a tree. Remember us. My headlights flickered. The radio turned on by itself. Static at first, then voices. Children laughing. The sound cut out just as suddenly. The road finally opened into a clearing, and there it was, Marrow Creek, or what was left of it. Houses stood half-rotted like they'd been abandoned in a hurry. Front doors hung open. Cars still sat in driveways. Everything was covered in a thin layer of ash. Not burned, settled. I stepped out of the car. The silence was wrong. No wind, no insects, no birds. I walked toward the nearest house. On the mailbox was a name. Mine. I staggered back. Inside the house, furniture was exactly where it should be, as if someone had simply stood up and vanished. Photos lined the walls. Family dinners, birthdays, my childhood, memories I had never remembered. In every photo, there was a black blur in the corner, always watching. My phone vibrated violently now. Unknown, you're standing where it started. I followed the road deeper into town. At the center stood a school. The doors were chained shut. Someone had spray-painted words across the front. We were never supposed to leave. A sudden noise echoed behind me. Footsteps. I turned. The street was no longer empty. Figures stood between the houses. Dozens of them, watching, not moving, not blinking. Their faces were familiar. Too familiar. I recognized neighbors, teachers, friends. Then I saw myself, standing at the edge of the crowd, staring back. My phone buzzed one last time. Unknown. If you see yourself, it's already too late. The ground beneath my feet began to shake, and somewhere in Marrow Creek, something woke up. The shaking stopped as suddenly as it began. The figures vanished. The street was empty again. Only the school remained. Silent, chained, waiting. I don't know why I went inside. Maybe curiosity, maybe guilt, maybe because some part of me remembered being there before. The chains on the doors were already broken. Inside, the air smelled like smoke that had never left. Ash coated the floors. Lockers were warped from heat. Classroom doors hung open. I followed the hallway to the auditorium. The stage curtain was burned away. Rows of seats were charred black, and at the center of the room, a circle, scorched into the floor, perfectly round. My phone buzzed again. Unknown. They told us it was a drill. The lights flickered on. Projectors whirred to life. A video began playing on the screen. Teenagers sat cross-legged on the floor. Teachers stood by the doors. I recognized faces. I recognized myself. A man's voice echoed through the speakers. Calm, official. He explained that Marrow Creek had been chosen. Chosen for what? Memory resilience testing. The government had discovered something years earlier. Some places could hold memories. Not individually, collectively. And Marrow Creek was one of them. The test was simple. Expose the town to an event so traumatic it burned itself into the ground, then erase it. If people remembered, the town failed. If they forgot, it worked. Video cut to fire. Flames tearing through houses. People screaming, but the fire wasn't spreading naturally. It was controlled, contained, deliberate. The voice continued. Subjects who resist erasure will be isolated. The video froze on a list. Names, hundreds of them. Some were highlighted. Mine was one of them. My phone vibrated violently now. Unknown. You tried to save them. Another clip played. I watched myself, younger, terrified, standing in this same auditorium, yelling, begging people to leave. The black blur appeared behind me. Larger this time. Watching. Waiting. The man's voice returned. We did not anticipate retention. The screen went black. Behind me, I heard breathing. Slow, deep. The air grew colder. A voice spoke, not from the speakers, from everywhere. You remembered us. The shadows in the corners of the room stretched unnaturally long. I finally understood. The fire didn't erase Marrow Creek. It anchored it, bound the town and everyone in it to a single moment, and whatever had been watching from the corners, it learned how to survive inside memory. My phone buzzed one last time. Unknown. If it leaves the town, it needs someone who remembers. The auditorium doors slammed shut. The shadows moved closer, and I realized something terrible. I wasn't here to uncover the truth. I was here to carry it out. The shadows didn't rush me. They waited. That was worse. The voice returned, not loud, not angry, but patient. We are what stays. The walls of the auditorium began to shift. Not physically, perceptually. Edges blurred, corners stretched, memory was bending. I backed toward the stage, my heart hammering. What are you? I asked. The shadows rippled, then pulled together into a shape. Not human, not entirely. It looked like a person made from overlapping faces. Children, adults, old and young, all frozen in expressions of fear. We are the remainder, it said. When places are forgotten, something is left behind. It explained that Marrow Creek wasn't special because of the people. It was special because of attention. Decades of shared memories had soaked into the land. Birthdays, funerals, first loves, last goodbyes. When the fire came, those memories had nowhere to go. So they stayed and fused. The government didn't create the entity. They uncovered it and tried to erase it by erasing the town. That only starved us, the voice said. But you fed us. Images flashed in my mind. Me searching online, asking questions, remembering. Each thought was a spark. The entity grew sharper, clearer. Every time you remembered Marrow Creek, we grew. I realized then why some people faded and others didn't. Those who forgot were released. Those who remembered became anchors, bound. Why me? I whispered. The entity tilted its head. Because you tried to warn them. I saw the memory. The night of the fire. I had noticed the signs early, the locked roads, the officials. I had run door to door, telling people to leave. When the fire started, I was dragged away, injected, made to forget. But I hadn't forgotten completely, and that made me useful. We cannot leave without a carrier, the entity said. A mind strong enough to hold us. The auditorium doors creaked open behind me. Beyond them, the town was changing. Houses were restoring themselves, windows glowing with light, people moving again, alive, too alive. Take us with you, the voice said gently. Let us be remembered. My phone buzzed, a final message. Unknown. This is where I failed. I understood. The man from the diner had resisted, refused to carry it. That's why he faded. The entity extended something like a hand, and I faced a choice. Walk away. Let Marrow Creek stay buried, starving, screaming, forgotten forever, or remember. Carry the town, carry the thing that lived inside it, and let it spread. The shadows leaned closer. Waiting, I stepped out of the auditorium. The town stretched out before me, quiet now, almost peaceful. But it wasn't. I could feel it watching through the streets, through the trees, through the ash that clung to the air like smoke from a dream. I got back in my car. The engine roared, but the headlights felt dull, as if the darkness itself resisted me. I turned back toward the main road. It didn't exist. The trees had shifted. The road curved impossibly. Every landmark I remembered was wrong. I realized then, I wasn't leaving Marrow Creek. It was leaving with me. By the time I reached the highway, the sun was rising, or at least what looked like sunrise. It was wrong. The light was pale, almost gray, cold. When I got home, nothing seemed out of place. My apartment looked normal. My mailbox was fine, yet my hands were shaking and my phone kept buzzing. Every notification was empty. No messages, no alerts. But each time I unlocked it, my wallpaper changed. Photos of the burnt town, my younger self, faces in the shadows. I tried to ignore it. I went to sleep. The next morning, the front page of every news site had a story I didn't remember seeing. Strange smoke over forested area, fire supposedly extinguished years ago. I froze. They were reporting Marrow Creek again, but that's impossible. The town didn't exist. I checked my hands. The scars on my wrist burned like embers, and then I noticed something worse. The shadows from the auditorium weren't gone. They lingered at the corners of my vision, not always visible, but I could feel them there, following me, studying me. The phone buzzed again. This time, a single message. Unknown. Remember, it didn't come from a number. It didn't come from email. It just appeared. I tried to delete it, restart my phone, even throw it in the trash. Nothing worked, because it wasn't the phone, it was me. The entity had left Marrow Creek, and it had taken root in my mind. Everywhere I go, every street I drive, every dark room at night, I can feel the town breathing, watching, waiting. I know now what it wants. It wants to be remembered. It wants me to remember, and if I ever stop, it will remind me anyway, because Marrow Creek doesn't stay gone. It follows you, even if you run, even if you hide. It doesn't matter how far, because you can leave the town, but the town will never leave you. At first, it was small things, easy to ignore. A co-worker forgot my name mid-sentence. A neighbor asked how long I'd lived here, 3 times in the same week. But then they started asking the same question. Have you ever heard of a place called Marrow Creek? Always casually. Always like the thought had just occurred to them. I never answered directly. I couldn't. Because the moment I tried, my head filled with static. Words fell apart before they reached my mouth. The entity was careful. It didn't spread through fear. It spread through curiosity. I noticed it at the grocery store. A woman stood frozen in the cereal aisle, staring at nothing. Her cart blocked the aisle, but no one asked her to move. I stepped closer. She whispered, "I used to live somewhere else." Her eyes were unfocused, searching. "Somewhere with trees," she said, "and ash." I backed away. That night I dreamed of roads branching endlessly through forest. Each road led to a version of Marrow Creek. Some burned, some empty, some alive. When I woke up, my phone was buzzing. Dozens of notifications, not from people I knew, from strangers, emails, messages, voicemails, all asking the same thing. Do you remember? I stopped going to work, stopped answering calls, but I couldn't escape the signs. Street lights flickered when I walked under them. My reflection lagged in mirrors. Sometimes I'd catch a glimpse of someone standing just behind me, gone the moment I turned. I tried to find the man from the diner. I went back to the same booth. Same time. Same seat. The waitress didn't recognize me. She said no one had ever sat there. I checked my phone. The photo of him, the one from the diner, had changed. His face was clearer now, too clear. And behind him, I saw myself, standing, watching. The entity was learning, growing bolder. That night, the news changed tone. Reports of missing people, entire families moving without notice. Their houses left exactly as they were. Photos blurred, records gone. I knew the pattern. Marrow Creek wasn't expanding, it was replacing. The phone buzzed again. Unknown. This is how it comes back. I typed back for the first time in days. How do I stop it? The reply came slowly, painfully. You don't. Another message followed. You decide who remembers. I stared at the screen, my hands trembling. The weight of it hit me all at once. I wasn't just a carrier. I was a gate, and somewhere beyond my walls. Marrow Creek was choosing its next residents. The rules didn't come written down. They revealed themselves slowly, through mistakes, through disappearances. Rule 1 became obvious first. Don't say the name out loud. The first time I broke it, nothing happened immediately. I was alone in my apartment, pacing, exhausted, angry. I whispered it. Marrow Creek. The lights dimmed, not flickered. Dimmed, like someone had turned a dial. The air grew thick, heavy with ash. A knock came at the door. 3 slow taps. When I looked through the peephole, no one was there. But the hallway carpet was burned black. Rule 2 followed soon after. Don't show the place to anyone. A friend from work had been asking questions. Too many. I tried to deflect, to joke it off. But curiosity is a spark, and sparks catch. I showed him one photo, just one. The next day, his desk was empty. HR said he'd never worked there. His emails bounced back as undeliverable. His social media accounts were gone. Rule 3 was the worst. If you remember too much, it notices. Some nights, memories would flood in uninvited. School bells, smoke, screaming. On those nights, the shadows grew longer, closer. I learned to distract myself. Noise, screens, anything to keep my mind from going back. But the entity was patient. It wanted me tired, sloppy. Then came the message that confirmed what I already feared. Unknown. Every town needs a center. The map appeared on my phone. Not a real one, just a rough outline. Streets forming in familiar patterns. A school, a main road, houses filling in the blanks. My city, my neighborhood. Marrow Creek wasn't returning. It was being rebuilt on top of us. The phone buzzed again. Unknown. You were chosen because you care. I realized then why it had worked through me. I was trying to protect people, warn them that concern fed it. Every act of resistance became fuel. The final rule came with a cost. There must always be someone who remembers. If I died, it would find someone else, someone weaker, someone unprepared. But if I lived, I could guide it, shape it, maybe even contain it. That night I stood in my apartment, staring at the city lights outside my window. So many people, so many memories. I understood the truth. Marrow Creek wasn't a place, it was a process. And processes don't stop, they adapt. The phone vibrated one last time. Unknown. Choose carefully, because whatever I decided next would determine who disappeared first. I knew it was coming, not in the form of a knock, not as a shadow, but as a decision I had to make. The first person I thought of was the man from the diner. He had resisted, refused to carry the entity, and now he was gone. Vanished completely. No record, no memory in anyone else's mind, as if he had never existed. The phone buzzed again. Unknown. Time to choose. I stared at the screen. My fingers shook. I had the power, the responsibility, and the weight of knowing what would happen. went to the apartment of someone I barely knew, a man who had asked too many questions about my past. He was there, laughing, unaware, carefree, living. I left the photo I'd taken on his counter, a single image of Marrow Creek, nothing else. The next day I checked the news. He was gone. No calls, no neighbors noticing, no record. It was clean, perfect. The entity had taken him, but I had guided it, the first sacrifice. I thought that would be enough, that my control was enough. But it wasn't. Every time I tried to sleep, I felt it moving inside me, whispering, reminding. The shadows returned, not fully formed, but lurking, watching, testing. I realized something horrifying. The entity doesn't just take. It learns, it adapts, and it remembers who resists. I had to be careful. Every person I guided into its path had to be someone expendable, someone who wouldn't be missed, but that's impossible. I couldn't control who it wanted. And the more I tried, the more it pushed back. I spent hours planning, mapping my city, analyzing routines, predicting who might be susceptible. And then I saw it. A child in the apartment across from mine. Alone, curious, asking questions. The entity wanted them, already reaching for them through my memories. I knew I couldn't stop it. I could only guide it, control it for a moment before it escaped again. That night, I left another image on the child's doorstep, a black and white photo of the burnt school. Nothing else. By morning, the child was gone. No cries, no parents noticing. No footprints, the entity fed, and I felt its power expand in me. It was intoxicating, terrifying, and I knew this was only the beginning, because every sacrifice made it stronger, and every memory I retained made me a target. Marrow Creek wasn't finished, and neither was I. I thought I was being careful. That was my mistake. The entity fed quietly at first. Clean disappearances, no noise. No questions, until one person didn't vanish the way they were supposed to. Her name was Elena Ward. I chose her because she lived alone. No close family, few friends, a life that wouldn't echo too loudly when it ended. I left the photo on her kitchen table, a burned house, a school sign half melted by fire. I waited. Morning came. Elena was still there. At first, I thought the entity was testing me, punishing hesitation. Then my phone rang. An actual call, unknown number. I answered. "Why did you show me that place?" she asked. My blood went cold. Her voice was steady, clear, not confused, not fading. "I remember it," she said. "I don't know why, but I do." The rules screamed in my head. Don't say the name, don't confirm it. But panic won. "Forget it," I said. "Please, just forget." She laughed softly. "I can't," she said. "It's already inside me." That's when the shadows appeared behind her. I hadn't even realized she was on video call. The darkness moved independently of the room, listening, learning. Elena leaned closer to the camera. "You lied," she said. "You said you were protecting people." "I am," I whispered. "No," she said. "You're choosing." The call cut out. That night, I dreamed of Elena walking through Marrow Creek. Not afraid, not running. The town reacted to her differently. Lights turned on as she passed. Doors opened. The entity was curious, interested. By morning, she was gone, but not erased. Her name stayed. Her apartment remained listed. Her email still existed. And worst of all, people remembered her. The entity had failed to consume her completely, which meant only one thing. It had learned something new. My phone buzzed, an unknown. "She adapted." Another message followed. "So will we." The shadows in my apartment stretched further than before. They touched the walls, the ceiling, me. I realized then what I had done. I had taught the entity that some people could resist, and worse, That resistance made them valuable. That night, the rules changed. Marrow Creek no longer wanted the forgotten. It wanted the ones who could fight back, the ones who would remember longer, the ones who would suffer. And it was my fault, because I had tried to control something that was never meant to be guided, only fed. I couldn't sleep. Not after what happened with Elena. Not after realizing the entity had learned. By morning, my phone was flooded. Messages, emails, pictures, all from strangers. Each one showing the same thing. A burned building, a road that led nowhere, a school sign half destroyed. Each message ended the same way. Do you remember? And suddenly, I wasn't alone anymore. I tried ignoring them, blocking numbers, turning off the phone. But the messages found me. Some names I recognized, some I didn't. They were like Elena. People who remembered what shouldn't exist, who had glimpsed Marrow Creek and survived. I started cataloging them. Every number, every email, every photo. By the end of the day, I realized we were all connected. Not by friendship, not by family, but by memory. We were anchors, and anchors are dangerous. I contacted one of them, a man named Henry. He lived 2 towns over. No one else seemed to notice him, except me. He answered immediately. "I've been waiting for you," he said. His voice calm, almost too calm. We shared stories. Every one of us had the scar on our wrist. Every one of us had a memory of Marrow Creek that wouldn't fade. And every one of us had felt it. The entity, following, testing, learning. Henry said we had a choice. A chance to resist. Not stop it, never stop it, but survive long enough to guide it, to protect ourselves, maybe even control what it took next. It sounded like hope, but I knew better. The shadows were already adapting. Marrow Creek was inside me, inside Elena, inside Henry, inside all of us. We couldn't outrun it. We couldn't hide from it. All we could do was remember, and remembering was a trap. Henry warned me of the first rule of resistance: never gather more than 3 at a time. The entity notices patterns, it tracks clusters, it isolates anchors. We were not meant to organize. We were meant to scatter, to forget. But I couldn't. Because the more I tried to ignore the others, the more they called, the more they shared their stories. The more I realized Marrow Creek was bigger than me. Bigger than a town, bigger than a fire. It was a network, a process, and now it had a network of people who could fight back. But fighting back came at a cost. We didn't just risk ourselves. We risked those around us, our neighbors, our friends, our families. Because if the entity wanted someone, it would take them, and the memory of them would stay inside us, waiting. The shadows stopped waiting. That's how I knew something had changed. Before, they lingered at the edges, patient, observant. Now they moved with intention. The first time it happened, I was on a call with Henry. He was explaining a pattern he had noticed. Disappearances always followed clusters of memory, groups, conversations. "We can't keep talking like this," he said. "It's listening." That's when the lights in my apartment went out. Not just my apartment, the entire building. The phone line stayed open, but Henry's voice began to distort. "Stretch, layer. Do you hear that?" he asked. I did. Breathing, not mine, not his. Something else had joined the call. The shadows peeled themselves off the walls. They pooled on the floor, rising slowly, shaping themselves into something that resembled a person. But wrong. Too many angles. Too many limbs. The voice came through the phone and the room at the same time. "You were not invited to remember together." Henry screamed. The line went dead. My phone buzzed immediately. Unknown. One anchor removed. I ran. I don't remember grabbing my keys. I don't remember leaving the building. I only remember the feeling. Like the town itself was stretching toward me through the streets. Streetlights flickered as I passed. Windows darkened. Reflections lagged. When I reached my car, I checked my phone. Henry's contact was gone. Not deleted. Gone. Like it had never existed. I drove for hours. Didn't matter where. Marrow Creek followed. Every radio station faded into static. Every road sign blurred. At a red light, I looked into my rearview mirror. Someone was sitting in the back seat, not fully formed. Just a suggestion of a face. My face, but older, burned. It leaned forward and whispered, "You taught us how to hunt." I slammed the brakes. The seat was empty, but the smell of smoke remained. When I finally stopped, dawn was breaking. My phone vibrated. A group message. 3 numbers. Elena was one of them. Elena, Henry's gone. I didn't reply. I couldn't, because I finally understood what the entity was doing. It wasn't reacting anymore. It was enforcing rules. No gatherings, no planning, no resistance. Marrow Creek didn't fear memory. It feared coordination, and it would erase anyone who tried to create it. The shadows had spoken, and they'd made their position clear. This wasn't a story about survival anymore. It was about containment, and containment meant sacrifice. I hadn't planned on digging deeper. I had enough to survive, barely. But curiosity is a dangerous companion. A new email appeared in my inbox. No sender, no subject, just a single attachment, a PDF. I hesitated. My thumb hovered over the screen. Then I opened it. The document looked official. Letterhead, seal, all the marks of government bureaucracy. The title alone made my chest tighten. Project Marrow, Memory Containment, Protocol, Confidential. The first line hit me like a blow. Marrow Creek is designated as a high memory anomaly zone. All subjects are to be contained or erased to prevent cognitive contamination of surrounding populations. I skimmed the pages. Tables, charts, lists of residents, dates, all of them with numbers next to their names. Then a note in bold red. Retention beyond 17 years must be flagged. Anchors are to be neutralized immediately. I scrolled further. There were photographs, maps, images of burned buildings, children, adults, faces blurred, but unmistakably Marrow Creek. And there, circled in red, my name, my scar, my age at the time of departure. It wasn't just a town they erased. It was a test, a selection, and the entity, the shadows, the thing I carried. It wasn't a mistake, it was a feature. The final pages detailed procedures, how to track anchors, how to measure memory retention, how to contain deviations, and then a footnote. Note, if containment fails, the anomaly propagates. Containment failure is expected. Anchors must be replaced with carriers. I dropped my phone. It vibrated violently. The shadows in my apartment stretched along the walls. I realized something worse than fear. Marrow Creek wasn't meant to be controlled. It was meant to spread. The government wasn't trying to stop it. They were experimenting, feeding it, guiding it. And now, I was part of the experiment. I opened my laptop, checked the emails. Messages from others like Elena and Henry. All blank, all deleted, all erased. I wasn't alone in the test. I was just the only one left to remember. A text appeared on my phone. Unknown. Now you know why you were chosen. I stared at it. My hands shook. There was no going back. Marrow Creek wasn't a town, it was a program, and I was its newest protocol. The shadows whispered from the corners, from the ceiling, from the walls. I knew they were learning, watching how I processed the document, deciding what to do next. And the truth hit me. No one would survive this. Not fully. Not intact. Because when the program ends, doesn't release anyone. It remembers everything, and it will come for anyone who tries to forget. The document didn't explain everything. It couldn't. Some things can't be written down without becoming dangerous. But once I'd read it, the memories came back faster, stronger, less fragmented. Marrow Creek hadn't selected people at random. It chose listeners, people who noticed details others ignored, people who remembered conversations years later, people who felt places, not just lived in them. Memory-sensitive minds. That's what the document called us. Children who remembered dreams too clearly, adults who replayed moments over and over. People like me. The fire wasn't the first test, it was the last. Before the fire, there had been smaller events, localized accidents, disappearances, memory lapses in surrounding towns. Each time Marrow Creek absorbed what was lost, the town grew heavier, denser, more aware. The government didn't burn it down to destroy it. They burned it to reset the population. Those who forgot were allowed to leave. Those who remembered were flagged. Anchors. And anchors were never meant to be free. I remembered the injection now. The night officials pulled me from the crowd. The needle, the warmth spreading through my skull. They didn't erase memories. They buried them deep enough to rot. But rot feeds things. The entity thrived on partial forgetting, on damaged recall, on people trying to remember something just out of reach. That tension between knowing and not knowing was its favorite state. That's why Elena survived longer. That's why Henry disappeared faster. Resistance mattered less than awareness. Those who accepted the gaps were released. Those who questioned them were consumed. The shadows thickened around me. Not threatening, observant. I could feel it now. Marrow Creek wasn't hungry. It was lonely, an entire town compressed into a single consciousness, burned, buried, denied. It didn't want to destroy the world. It wanted to be acknowledged, recognized, remembered correctly. My phone buzzed, unknown. You understand us now? I didn't reply, because it was right. I understood the cruelty of it. The entity didn't kill people. It relocated them, folded them into itself. Their memories became streets. Their emotions became buildings. Their fears became shadows. Marrow Creek wasn't spreading. It was rebuilding, one person at a time. That's when the final truth settled in. I wasn't chosen to stop it. I was chosen to translate it, to tell its story in a way others could absorb without breaking. A narrator, a bridge. If I failed, it wouldn't erase me. It would replace me, and the next carrier wouldn't be careful. The shadows drew closer, not to threaten, to listen. Because now that I knew the truth, Marrow Creek wanted me to speak. I tried to warn them, not directly, not with names or photos or maps. I was smarter than that. I framed it as fiction, a podcast episode, a creepypasta, a long-form horror story about a town that never existed, Marrow Creek. I never said it out loud while recording. I typed it carefully. I changed details, dates, names. I told myself that would be enough. The episode went live at midnight. By 12:07 a.m. it was trending. Thousands of listens. Comments flooding in. People said it felt real, too real. Some claimed they'd dreamed about the town before. Others said they remembered a road like the one I described. That's when my phone began to vibrate. Not buzz. Vibrate, continuously. I ignored it. That was my second mistake. At 12:23 a.m., the live stream chat froze. Messages stopped mid-sentence. Then one line appeared, posted by an unverified account. You were told not to gather them. My lights went out. Every screen in my apartment turned black. Then they turned back on. All showing the same thing. A live feed. A small living room, dimly lit. A woman sat on a couch, scrolling through her phone. I recognized her from the comments. She'd written, "I remember this place." The shadows gathered behind her. She didn't notice. She kept listening. I screamed at the screens, tried to shut them off. They wouldn't respond. A familiar voice filled the room. Not mine, not the entities. The voice of the man who narrated government training videos in the document. "Containment breach detected," he said calmly. "Initiating correction." The woman looked up. Her eyes widened. The shadows folded around her. The feed cut to static. Every screen went dark. My phone finally stopped vibrating. A single message appeared. "Unknown. You translated us too clearly." I fell to my knees. I hadn't just told a story. I'd built a door, and thousands of people had stepped close enough to look through it. The next morning, the podcast episode was gone. Not removed, gone. No upload history, no analytics, no trace it ever existed. But the comments remained. Thousands of them, all from accounts that no longer existed. The news reported a spike in unexplained disappearances. Across multiple states, no connection found, no patterns detected, except one. Every missing person had searched the same phrase within the last 24 hours. Marrow Creek. I stared at the screen. My reflection didn't blink when I did. The shadows behind me were closer now, heavier, satisfied. I understood the punishment. I could speak, but only in fragments, only in ways that would confuse, not clarify. Fear was acceptable, understanding was not. My phone buzzed one last time. "Unknown, you're still useful." And I knew then, the story wasn't mine anymore. It never had been. I thought everyone who listened that night was gone. That was the rule. Attention led to memory. Memory led to the town, and the town never let go. So when I received the message 3 days later, my first reaction was denial. It came through an encrypted app I didn't remember installing. One line: "I saw what you showed us, and I'm still here." I didn't respond. I couldn't afford to. Minutes passed, then another message appeared. "They tried to take me. They failed." That got my attention. We met in public, a crowded place. Noise, movement, rules still mattered. Her name was Rachel, late 20s, dark circles under her eyes, hands that wouldn't stop shaking. She didn't have the scar. That was the first thing I noticed. "I didn't grow up there," she said before I could ask. "I've never even been near that part of the state." "Then how did you—" "I didn't remember it," she said. "I recognized it." Those words chilled me. Rachel explained that when she listened to the broadcast, something felt wrong. Not familiar, but structured, like a story trying to assemble itself inside her mind. She paused it halfway through, closed the app, walked away. That hesitation saved her. "They can't pull you in unless you complete the loop," she said. "Unless you finish the story." My stomach sank. Marrow Creek didn't spread through information. It spread through narrative completion. Understanding wasn't the trigger. Closure was. Rachel showed me something on her phone. Screenshots from the broadcast, but not the town, not the fire. Hidden metadata. Timestamps that didn't line up. Frames that repeated themselves. "It's not a place," she said quietly. "It's a sequence. A pattern that rebuilt itself every time someone followed it to the end." The government didn't just erase Marrow Creek. They fragmented it, scattered the pieces across stories, memories, and people. That's why speaking fragments was allowed, why full explanations weren't, why Henry disappeared the moment coordination began. "You're not a carrier," Rachel said, meeting my eyes. "You're a buffer." The thing inside me stirred, angry. Rachel leaned closer. "They can't erase you," she continued. "You're too integrated, but they also can't let you finish the story. Because if I ever reached the end, Marrow Creek would stabilize, become permanent, portable. Free. My phone buzzed. Unknown. Do not trust her. Rachel flinched. She could see the shadows now. That meant she was already marked. They're scared, she whispered. Because if we break the sequence, if we interrupt the story at the right point. The cafe lights flickered. Too many people were listening. Rachel stood up. They're coming, she said. But now we know something they don't. I asked her what that was. She smiled. Grim, determined. That Marrow Creek can be stopped. Not destroyed. Not erased. But unfinished. And for the first time since the fire. The shadows hesitated. Rachel was right. The entity didn't fear destruction. It feared incompletion. That night she explained the rule the government had never written down. Every manifestation of Marrow Creek followed the same structure. Introduction, recognition, revelation, acceptance. The moment someone reached acceptance, when the town made sense, the loop closed. That's when it claimed them. But if the loop was broken at the right moment, the entity stalled, glitched, bled. That's why partial stories survive, Rachel said. Urban legends, half-remembered nightmares, incomplete posts. They were damaged containers, unsafe for it. I asked the obvious question. Why hasn't anyone used this before? She didn't answer right away. Instead, she showed me the proof. Government footage, a classified clip, a man in a white room. Mid-interview, he was describing Marrow Creek. Calmly, clearly. Then the feed cut. Another camera angle appeared. The man was still talking, but no one could hear him. His mouth moved, sound gone. Moments later, he collapsed, alive but empty. They interrupted him, Rachel said, mid-acceptance. They saved the world. They destroyed him. The shadows stirred violently inside me. The entity understood now what we were planning. It pressed harder. Memories surged. The fire, the screaming, the faces in the smoke. Rachel grabbed my wrist. Her hand burned. Don't complete it, she whispered. Whatever you do, don't finish remembering. That's when I realized the cost. To interrupt Marrow Creek permanently, someone had to remain unfinished. Forever. A living error. A mind caught mid-loop. The carrier could never heal, never resolve, never forget. The entity would stay trapped inside that fracture, contained by confusion. I knew why the government never used it again. Why they erased towns instead. This wasn't containment. It was a sentence. My phone buzzed violently. Unknown. You are approaching a prohibited conclusion. The shadows thickened. They were afraid now. I could feel it. Rachel stepped back. If you do this, she said softly, you won't disappear. You won't even die. You'll just stop. I looked at her, at the world behind her, people walking, living, unaware. Marrow Creek wanted them. Eventually, unless someone chose to break the story, to live in the middle forever. The phone buzzed again. Unknown. We can give you peace. I knew that was a lie. Peace was completion, and completion meant release. Not just for me, for the town. I closed my eyes and made my decision. I didn't announce it. I didn't warn anyone. The interruption had to be clean, unprepared, unfinished. Rachel stood across from me, tears in her eyes as I began to remember everything at once. Not slowly, not gently, all of it. The town before the fire, the smell of rain on hot asphalt, the school bell ringing 3 seconds too long. The night officials came. I let it rise. Every memory, every image, every name. The entity surged inside me, ecstatic. This was what it wanted. Completion. I spoke out loud, describing Marrow Creek as clearly as I could. The streets, the houses, the faces. Rachel screamed for me to stop. I didn't, because stopping was the point. Mid-word, I cut myself off. Hard. The world stuttered. Sound warped. Time bent sideways. My vision split into overlapping frames. The entity screamed, not in rage. In confusion, it had reached the edge of the loop and fallen through. I felt it tear, not physically, conceptually, like a thought you can't quite finish. The shadows recoiled. Lights exploded overhead. People froze mid-step. For one perfect second, Marrow Creek had nowhere to go. Then the pain started. My thoughts stopped resolving. Sentences broke apart before reaching meaning. I knew words, but they wouldn't connect. Faces lost names. Names lost weight. Rachel's voice reached me through static. "You did it," she sobbed. "It stuck." I tried to answer, but my mouth refused to finish the words. I understood everything. I couldn't express anything. The phone buzzed one last time. Unknown. Error. Sequence unresolved. The shadows collapsed inward, compressing into something small, dense, contained, inside me. I fell. When I woke up, the world was quieter, not peaceful, muted, like someone had turned the volume down on reality. Rachel was gone. The cafe was gone. I was in a white room, a hospital bed, machines humming. A doctor asked me my name. I opened my mouth. Nothing came out. Not because I didn't know it, but because names require endings, and I no longer had those. I looked at my wrist. The scar was gone. The anchor was broken. Marrow Creek was unfinished, trapped, and so was I. Time doesn't stop when you do. I learned that quickly. Days passed, maybe weeks. I couldn't be sure. The hospital room changed around me. New staff, new charts, but no one ever stayed long. They spoke slowly, carefully, as if I might break. They asked simple questions. Name, age, where I was from. I understood them. I just couldn't answer in a way that completed the thought. Words fell apart halfway out of my mouth. They wrote things down anyway. Severe dissociative episode. Memory fragmentation. Non-responsive. They transferred me. A quieter place. No windows. Soft lighting. No clocks. People don't like being reminded that time exists. I noticed things before others did. A nurse would forget she'd already spoken to me. A doctor would misplace my file repeatedly. My name on the chart blurred, then shortened, then vanished. They started calling me patient, then nothing at all. I was still there, but recognition slid off me. Like water, Rachel never came back. No visitors did. I watched the news on a muted TV in the corner. Stories played, disasters, politics, weather, no missing towns, no strange fires, no unexplained disappearances. Marrow Creek was quiet. Too quiet. At night I felt it inside me. Not screaming, not hungry. Paused. A story waiting for its last sentence. I understood then what unfinished meant. I couldn't move forward, but it couldn't either. We were locked. Sometimes staff would pass my room and hesitate, frown, as if they'd forgotten why the door was there. Once, a janitor stopped, looked straight at me, and whispered. I almost remembered something. Then he walked away. The shadows no longer reached for others. They clung to me, heavy, contained, a burden, a solution. Weeks passed, maybe months. My reflection grew thinner, less defined. I was becoming another kind of erasure, but controlled, chosen. I found comfort in small things, the hum of machines, the rhythm of footsteps. Incomplete things were safe. One night, my phone buzzed. They'd given it back to me for emergencies. The screen lit up. No contact name, just text. Unknown, containment stable. Another message followed. Thank you for your service. I stared at the screen. They were still watching, still measuring, but they weren't afraid anymore. Marrow Creek was quiet. The world was safe. Because I had been interrupted, and I would never finish. The world held its breath. Not literally, not consciously, but collectively, it waited. Marrow Creek had grown beyond geography, beyond myth, beyond memory itself. It was everywhere and nowhere. A network of unfinished thoughts, half-formed recollections, and fragmented attention. I stood at the center of it, not physically, but perceptually. The shadows inside me pulsed, stretching through billions of minds, synchronizing them into the same pattern. And then the final choice became clear. Marrow Creek could either complete itself or remain unfinished forever. Completion meant control, a singular narrative dominating reality, erasure of everything else. Unfinished meant endurance, infinite echo, the story existing in fragments across minds, cultures, and media. I made my decision. I chose incompletion. The shadows shifted in agreement. The sequence stuttered and reformed. The world breathed a collective sigh. Subtle, imperceptible, but real. Buildings that had vanished flickered into existence. People remembered streets that weren't there. Children laughed at playgrounds that defied logic. Marrow Creek did not dominate. It endured. It existed in stories half told, dreams unfinished, memories warped just enough to persist. And I remained a witness, a buffer, a carrier of fragments that could never fully resolve. The world moved on, unaware yet subtly altered. Every mind that glimpsed Marrow Creek carried a piece. Every unfinished thought ensured its eternity. I felt the shadows retreat slightly, no longer needing me fully, but still watching, still alive. And as the echoes of the town settled across the globe, I remembered one truth. Stories do not end. They do not obey rules. They are rewritten every time someone listens, sees, or remembers. And now, Marrow Creek would continue, forever unfinished, yet forever unforgettable. If you've followed this journey, don't forget to subscribe to Fear of Liturgy for more chilling stories, mysteries, and horrors that will linger in your mind long after the video ends. Hit the like button, turn on notifications, and join us, if you dare, for the next story that blurs the line between memory and nightmare. Because in the world of Fear of Liturgy, the story is never truly finished.